Good morning, Year 4. Let's start our English lesson now. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, we're going to start off with our Flashback 4 for English today. Now, the first section, I'd like you to write a sentence about this scene that you can see here. It should contain a preposition. When you've written it, underline that preposition. Now, remember, a preposition, think of that little mouse that we talk about in class that goes under and over and through things. Remember, a preposition tells us the position of something, doesn't it? Next, go to section 3. Find 3 conjunction in these sentences and write them down in your book. The man jogged down the road before stopping for a drink. After catching his breath, he set off again and sprinted up the hill. Section 5. Change these adjectives into adverbs. Terrible, sensible, and noble. And section 6. Rewrite this sentence and add a subordinate clause. The family stood safely behind the barriers to watch the fireworks. Now remember, the subordinate clause is the part of the sentence that doesn't make sense on its own, and it does have to have a verb in it. Pause the video and have a go at that now. Well done. Okay, now before we start our English work today, let's chat about what we would be doing this term if we were in class. Now remember, yesterday we were learning about leadership. Remember, our big question this term is, what makes a good leader? And we watched this video, didn't we, with 3 little clips of film about 3 groups of animals. There was the penguins, the ants, and the crabs, and each one had a leader. And the leader helped them overcome an enemy because they were a good leader. So you, this term, are going to write your own leadership story, maybe about a different set of animals, and your story will entertain us. It will entertain your classmates and it'll entertain me. Now this term, we'll probably work on this for about 3 weeks. So first of all, we're going to be watching and understanding that animation. We watched it yesterday, but we're going to watch it again today. We're also going to explore a model of excellence. And then we'll learn a bit more about noun phrases and prepositional phrases, which we've already done, but we're going to just really embed them in our writing this term. We're going to have a go at using those noun and prepositional phrases, and then we're going to plan our story, innovate some good ideas. Eventually you'll write your story, and if we were back in class, we'd be doing some editing together, wouldn't we? But you'll be doing some editing perhaps on your own. And your story will follow these 4 points. We're going to be in class writing about the ant part of the story together as part of our lessons, but then your story will be about a different animal, but it will still have 4 points or 4 paragraphs. Firstly, it'll have a section which introduces the setting and the characters. Then it will have the next paragraph, which will introduce the sudden threat which appears from nowhere. And then the third paragraph will talk about the leader taking action. And the final paragraph will talk about the team following the leader and the threat being avoided. So that's what we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. Now today, we're going to be describing using noun phrases. So in your books, could you write, please, today's date and learning objective? Although I've just spotted the date's wrong. It's actually going to be Wednesday, the 6th of January when you do this. So pause the video and do that now. Well done. Now, if we're in class now, I'd be asking you to talk with your partner, and we're going to be talking about nouns and adjectives and noun phrases. So we've been talked about this a lot before Christmas and obviously yesterday or Monday, but I'd like you to remind me and yourself what a noun is. Perhaps you could write your own definition. And then could you think of any examples of what a noun is? Now remember, a noun, like a name, that gives you a little bit of a clue, doesn't it? Finally, I'd like you to think about adjectives. Could you describe what an adjective is? I've given you a little clue in what I just said. Can you think of any examples of adjectives? Pause the video and do that now. So Hopefully you've done that. Hopefully you've come up with a description for a noun. And hopefully you've come up with a description for an adjective. Let's just remind ourselves. A noun, as we can see here in blue, are things. They're names of things. They might be names of a thing, like the table, or it could be a name of a person, or a name of a place, or it could be a name of a feeling. Here we've got troll, sun, and sand. Now, when we pair that up with an adjective, like gigantic, bright, burning, golden, we have a noun phrase. So here is one noun phrase. Here is another noun phrase, and here's another one. In year 4, we know that sometimes we can choose one adjective to describe our noun. Sometimes we can use 2, sometimes 3, but we don't want to throw in so many that it makes our writing sound a bit clunky. So before we go on and we start to use our noun phrases and writing some sentences, let's watch the video again to remind ourselves about the 3 leadership stories before we read our model of excellence. So I'm going to go onto the video now to show it, and hopefully it will work. But if you can't, if it doesn't work, you can always go back a few slides and you'll see that there's a YouTube address and it will tell you where it is. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. Now you can watch that through a couple of times. And we're now going to read through our model of excellence, which is based on the penguin part of the story, the precocious penguins. So let's read that through now. And hopefully there won't be any mistakes in my model of excellence. Let's have a look. At the very bottom of the earth, the winter winds were beginning to lessen, and a clear azure sky stretched across the icy plains of Antarctica. Imposing ice structures meandered menacingly through the freezing waters, while an eerie silence filled the air. Perched perilously on one of those icebergs was a colony of penguins huddled together for warmth, yet alert for their next fishy feed. The patient penguins' eyes darted to and fro across the lapping waves so they wouldn't miss any potential food or foes. With alarming speed, an ominous black fin darted through the waves and began circling the penguins. Someone else had smelt his breakfast. The razor-finned giant emerged further from the ocean's depths and opened his deadly mouth with its razor-sharp teeth. Swimming quicker towards the penguin colony, the killer whale readied himself to fill his belly. Suddenly, one clever penguin had a cunning idea. With an urgent shout, the penguin ordered the colony to work together. Shuffling steadily towards the edge of the ice, they tilted the great ice mountain towards the watery depths of the ocean. Just as the finned giant was about to gorge on his delicious feast, his enormous jaw smacked into an icy wall, and his breakfast dream sank with him. Now, in that model of excellence, you will notice that there are lots of noun phrases. Now remember, the noun phrase describes the nouns. The adjectives describe the nouns. So let's find, first of all, some nouns, shall we? Let's look in the first paragraph. I'm going to find one. So, first sentence, wind. That is the noun. Can we find the adjective that describes it? Yes, we can here, the winter wind. So that is our very first noun phrase. So what you could do is you could take your highlighter pen and you could go through it and you could find all of the noun phrases in your model of excellence. Why don't you stop what you're doing now, press pause and have a go and see how many you can find. Perhaps you could write them out on your book, or if you've printed off this page, perhaps you could highlight them. Well done. Hopefully you found lots. Let's go and see in that first paragraph how many you can find. So I have found winter winds, and then I find here's the sky. That's another noun, and I've described it with clear and azure. I wonder what that word means. Could you look it up in a dictionary and find out? Here we've got plains, another noun, and I've called them the icy plains. So that's another noun phrase. We've got ice structures, and I've called them imposing ice structures. That's another noun phrase. And here we've got the water, which I've described as freezing waters. And here we've got silence, which I've described as eerie silence. So I think that's everything there. Oh no, last one, fishy feed. I think that's all of them in that first paragraph. I wonder how many you will have found. Perhaps you can write them out for me, and so I can see in your book later on. So now we've done that, we now need to think about generating some of our own noun phrases for this picture. We're going to be writing about the ants tomorrow. We're going to be describing the very first paragraph where we talk about the ants, where they are and what they're doing. So we're going to want to describe the setting. We're going to imagine the setting looks a bit like this, somewhere hot and dry. Now, I'd like you first of all to have a good look at this picture, and perhaps you can chat with your grown-up or perhaps with somebody else, and you can find all the nouns that you can see in this picture. Pause the video now and see how many you can find. Well done. Now you probably have generated lots of nouns, but you might have found, for example, the sun. That's a noun. You might have found trees. That's another one. Or the grass, or the sky, or the clouds. Now remember, they're not always things that we can see. They could be things that we could smell, or something that we could touch, like the wind, or hear, like the birds that I'm sure that they're in the tree, singing sweetly. So have a think. Can you think of any more nouns? Right, now that you've done that, let's think of adjectives that we could use to describe these nouns. Think of how you would describe the sun. What adjectives would you use to describe the sun? Pause the video and see how many you can think of. Well done. Now you probably thought of bright, you might have had yellow, maybe burning, scorching, maybe setting sun. Think in year 4 how you can get some really great, precise adjectives. You don't need to tell me that the sun's yellow, because I know the sun's yellow, but sometimes it can turn amber or orange, or maybe even pink in the sky sometimes. So think about the types of adjectives you could use. Right, now we're getting ready to write our sentences in a minute, but let's think first of all about what makes a really good sentence. Now remember, a sentence must always have an object, a noun, the grass here, for example, and it's always doing something. It's probably got a verb in the sentence. If it doesn't have a verb, it's not a proper sentence. So here, my sentence, which is very simple, says the grass swayed. There's no noun phrases in this sentence, so at the moment it's a very simple sentence. You're not going to write any sentences that simple because you're in year 4 and you're going to be extending your writing. So let's see how we can make this even better. So first of all, what I could do, the grass swayed, I could improve by saying the dry grass swayed. Now we have a noun phrase. Maybe you could have a better verb, maybe a better word, sorry, brittle. The brittle grass swayed. Perhaps you could have 2 adjectives. The dry golden grass swayed. You can think of whatever you want as long as it's appropriate and it goes with what you're describing. Let's move on to our next sentence. I've improved it even more now. The coarse dry grass swayed and the sun set. Now I've included a conjunction. Now I've written a compound sentence. I'm writing about two things that are happening in my sentence. The grass is swaying and the sun is setting. They're both happening at the same time. They both have got two main clauses. Both these bits of the sentence would make sense on their own, but I've joined them together using the and to make a compound sentence. I've improved it even more here. The coarse, dry grass swayed as the sun set. Now we've got an even better sentence. This is much more like the kind of sentence I'd see in year 4. But I think you probably can improve this even further. Pause the video now and see if you can write your own sentence, maybe about the grass, maybe about something else in this picture. See how you can improve your sentence, making sure there's obviously a noun and a verb. Obviously there'll be adjectives, and maybe you've done a compound or a complex sentence. Have a go now. Right, now, this is your task today, year 4. You need to write some sentences now, not a paragraph, so you'll write individual sentences for me. We'll be using those tomorrow when we write our paragraph. I think probably I just want to see 6 really good sentences. But remember, it's not about how many you write, it's more about how good they are. So your sentences are going to describe the scene that we've just looked at. Let's remind ourselves, this is the scene we're describing. Okay, so you might need to pause the video on that picture so you can have a really good look at it. Okay. Your sentences will make sense. They have to make sense. Remember, pop your fingers in your ears and read them out loud to make sure they make sense. They must include a verb and a noun and some adjectives to make a noun phrase. You could perhaps include some conjunctions to write compound or complex sentences, and you could use some adverbs to describe the verbs. Okay, so slowly set. That would be an example of an adverb. All of these things we've done lots before, so I'm going to expect some really good sentences, and I want you to be really precise in your words that you're going to use to show me your description. So have a go now and again, and remember, it's not about how many you write, it's about the good quality of the sentences. And remember to check that they do make sense. Read them to your grown-up to see if they like them. Okay, pause the video now on this scene and get writing. Now remember, it's not all about everything that you see. It could be about what you can touch in this scene, or what you can hear in this scene, or even what you could smell. Maybe you can smell the grass. I don't know. Okay, off you go, and I look forward to reading what you write later. Okay, so remember to take a picture of your work and send it on to me later.